Hi there, everyone. This is just another brief video to go over the writing construct essay and the writing construct project, which is a series of small works that builds up to this final piece of writing, the writing construct essay. So we'll start by making sure we understand the foundation, the fundamentals of this essay. Of course, I expect you to read and take in all of the material here. If you haven't read this assignment, stop, don't watch the rest of this video. Read this assignment in full, understand it as best you can before you come back to watch this, because this is just like I'm just going to go over some of the highlights here. I won't go over all of it. It's here for you to read. So we now know what a writing construct is, right? I like, after Downes and Wardle here have defined it, they go on to say that another way to think about construct is to recognize that many of our conceptions, our common sense understandings of writing, are actually misconceptions that don't hold up under close scrutiny, right? We've been calling these myths, writing myths about writing. So you can think of this perhaps as an unconscious hypothesis for this assignment. In other words, we can approach this assignment by saying, well, many people think that writing is X, and that reality seems unquestionable until we take a closer look at it. Right, not all writing constructs are myths, but many students in this assignment take it as an opportunity to address something they've been told about writing their whole lives, and push back and say, actually, good grammar isn't the most important thing about writing. Look at all this research. You think that good writing is good grammar. All of this writing suggests otherwise. So far in this term, right, we've talked about some constructs, the idea of a shitty first draft or the idea of a one draft wonder, right? These are constructs. These are ideas about writing that are pervasive. So more specifically, our task in this assignment is to select and focus on a single writing construct or a single conception about writing. Then we'll analyze it. The ultimate goal here is to make an informed recommendation as to whether this construct should be kept as is, revised, or abolished. Of course, if you think you've encountered a writing construct that is harmful, it doesn't help students, you'll probably want to be making an argument that, say, the 5-paragraph essay does more harm than good, and so we shouldn't be teaching it. Of course, you may look into the 5-paragraph essay. That's just a random writing construct that I'm using for an example, and say, it has some problems, but it needs to be revised. Maybe we should stop teaching it in the 3rd grade. Or maybe you'll look into their 5-paragraph essay and say, well, actually, the research suggests that this is really helpful, and although it's hard, although I don't personally like it, maybe it should be kept as is. Or maybe you'll choose a writing construct that you like. So we don't ultimately have to address a writing construct and debunk it, right? We don't have to necessarily myth bust a writing construct, but we do have to choose one, research it, and make this revised recommendation. So we're in the process. Here's some more objectives here, of course. This is kind of the first assignment in this class that is really that sort of typical academic writing, in that we're doing research, we're synthesizing ideas, we're doing a lot of analysis, we're bringing in the ideas of others, we're doing a lot of research to support an ultimate claim. So first, right, we need to brainstorm and come up with an idea, come up with a construct that we want to focus on for the coming weeks. We've begun to do that in the writing in the week for discussion boards. I won't go through all of this, but this kind of mimics for you a good pre-writing brainstorming process. If you think of a writing construct, ask yourself some of these questions to see if to get you thinking about that construct. Of course, when you draft your project, you'll need to make sure you have a claim that you're trying to make. What ultimate claim are you making about the writing construct? Should it be kept as is, revised, or abolished, and why? right? So we're building a theory here, a way of seeing this construct, hopefully in a more meaningful way. We know constructs are things that haven't really been, we just assume they're true, and we are doing research to really make sure that we see them in a helpful, clear way. So we will be doing research in this essay, and in just a moment we'll look at the first step in that research, which is the annotated bibliography. Right, but we didn't have to do research in our literacy narrative because it was our evidence was sort of our personal experience. But now that we're entering sort of a more academic world, we're going to have to do research, see what others have said, others with credibility have said about our writing construct. Okay, I will let you read this in more detail. Here's a very detailed rubric about how this will be graded. If you have any questions about that, of course, email me. What I want to look at now is the writing construct project. So here you can see, again, we have a series of scaffolded assignments leading up to a final writing construct essay. This is pretty much similar to how it went in our literacy narrative assignment, except that now we have an annotated bibliography to begin with, but we'll do some research at first, then we'll come up with a draft, then we'll get peer review, then we'll come up with a revision plan, we'll get some feedback from both our peers, from me, before we come up with this final writing construct essay. This one is worth 200 points. So perhaps one thing to point out is that this is our most weighty project as far as points go. So these here are the steps through which we will go to write our final writing construct essay. If you wanted to map those steps onto our course calendar, you can. You can see that starting Wednesday of week 5, our annotated bibliography is due. By Wednesday of week 6, our first draft is due. Then by the end of week 6, we'll get some feedback from our peers. Then we'll come up with a revision plan, get some feedback from me on that revision plan. And that brings our final writing construct essay being due on at the end of week 7. So I'll just take the remaining portion of this video, not much longer, to talk about the annotated bibliography. Again, I suggest you go read through this assignment to make sure you understand everything about it. A bibliography is simply a list of sources. Annotated simply means that you have taken some notes on those sources. So this is designed after you have selected your single writing construct that you want to focus on. I'm asking you to find 3 credible sources that are related to that writing construct. Now, the research process isn't necessarily linear, so if I were you and you have a couple of ideas, maybe just do a little bit of brief research on each before you select. I think sometimes students think, I'm gonna write about this, and then you sit down and do the research and you think, oh, well, I can't find any good research on this. So if you want to do a little bit of preliminary research before this is due, that's fine. But keep in mind that our ultimate goal for this research is to help you support the informed recommendation that you're going to make about the writing construct. Right? Are we going to keep it, revise it, abolish it, and why? So this task asks you to find 3 sources, cite them in MLA format, and then for each source, write a little annotation that answers the following questions. We're just sort of analyzing, making sure the sources we have are credible. Now, lastly, how are we going to find, in this writing about writing course, how are we going to find writing about writing? In other words, where are we going to find credible sources on, say, sentence fragments or some other grammatical concept? Well, if you look at the bottom of this page here, I've provided you with some hints. These are some really good sources, really easy to navigate sources that all address what we've come to know as writing constructs, right? So here's a link to a open source, which means free textbook called Bad Ideas About Writing. We will read some readings from this text are actually assigned readings for our course. One thing to note about this text, you can see it's 300 some pages long. Of course, if you don't know about the Control F function, you could just search, let's see, 5-paragraph, right? And maybe that's a way to use this more easily. Of course, another way to use this more easily is the table of contents here. One thing to know is that since this book is called Bad Ideas About Writing, the titles are opposite. So in, for instance, this, for instance, in any of these, the title is Bad Ideas About Writing, Teaching Grammar Improves Writing. The thesis of that essay will be the opposite of the title, right? It is saying that teaching grammar to improve writing is actually a bad idea about writing. For instance, right, official American English is best. We can expect that that is the opposite of the author's stance, right? Because the author is saying the title is that is a bad idea about writing. So this is a great resource for us. There's also another good source called Writing Spaces. This one's maybe a little bit more complex, but it has some really good stuff. So these are good sources for you to explore as you begin to collect research. Our Purdue's Online Writing Lab is a pretty good source. The last thing that I'll say about research is, and I've included a link to this, we have a library research guide for our class, for our specific class, not just for Writing 121, but for My Writing 121. So Tracy Sharn is our instructional librarian. If we were on campus, we would meet with her and we would do some research in class. But she is still our instructional librarian. She's very familiar with this assignment, and she has put together this little research page that will give you some sources about where to find research. She's added Compile here, Google Scholar, JSTOR Arts and Sciences, right? If you've got a citation that you want to find, she has our, this is our library research page. Tracy Sharn is our librarian, and although we're not going to be going to Hammersley to have a class with her, she's still very familiar with this assignment, and her job is to help you find sources you want. So I really highly recommend that if you're having trouble or you don't know, you found a source but you can't get access to it, I really strongly recommend that you contact Tracy Sharn. Her email is here. She's very familiar with this assignment, and it is her job to help you find what you want. Great. So that's an overview of how we'll be spending the next, 4 or 5 weeks. We'll be working on this until the end of week 7. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Better yet, ask those questions in the Ask Questions Here discussion board post so that I can respond there and everyone will see the answers. Great. I hope you all have a great week. Take care.